Most Americans have no idea how the economy works, nor how the Fed's actions impact things. Most Americans have no idea how QE works or where the money goes. In destroying bond yields, the Fed has pushed all the invested money into the stock market, which is part of the reason it's priced so absurdly. The politicians have no spine. They get briefings on this stuff. They understand that perpetually low rates have negative consequences. But they don't have the balls to explain to Joe Slackjaw that 2% 84-month loans on $60,000 pickup trucks are actually a bad thing. The best way to re-election is to keep the money printer going burr. And that's a bipartisan fact. Welcome back to the Atlantis Report. You are here for your daily dose of the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Please take a second to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and don't forget to also hit the notification bell. The bankers are now the bank robbers. All the money at the top, little to the bottom. America is run by economic vandals and financial fraudsters. American law is in the hands of bank robbers, they are not accountable to anyone. The banks do not even print money. It is all digital money backed by nothing and printed on nothing. It is all one big scam. They are addicts, and addicts will do anything to keep their high going. They are gamblers. They want to keep their casino running. The bankers will keep injecting more monetary methadone to keep them alive and moving. But they are really dead, they come up with different scams to keep this thing going. The Fed must lie about real inflation. If they admit that real inflation is over 10%, then it takes 10 years to inflate away half of your wealth. People who think they are going to retire are going to have a severe wake-up call. The real inflation of all the money created after 2008 is just now coming home to roost, and that isn't even counting all the offshore dollars from the petrodollar. As other countries use other currencies, those dollars will go home as well. Inflation in the next 20 years will be crushing. Learn to grow a garden. A big garden. And buy some silver and gold. Anything that will maintain its value. The storm is in the mail. We are living in a system of the banks, by the banks and for the banks, and that is the reality. They spent all that money to save the banking system, and the biggest travesty is, not one person of any stature went to prison for the fraud against the American taxpayer, not one. At least George W. Bush sent Kenny Boyle, Jeffrey Skilling, and others to jail for what they did to Enron and especially to the people of California with those phony rolling blackouts. I am sick, just like half the country, of all the disappointments in investigation outcomes that result in no indictments. Had any of us peasants have done these crimes, we'd be tried already and either locked up for life with no parole ever or dead from a firing squad. The central banks get power from billionaires that control the two political parties. The billionaires own the Fed. So they are forcing the Fed to hyperinflate and lower rates. The US government has sold its population to private corporations, the prison industry needs new inmates perpetually. I am waiting for the government to make being in debt for too long a crime, or non-payment defaults get 3 months in prison, or you can opt to do jail time to clear your debt. Billionaires have little to worry about if there is a peasant insurrection, residing behind their fortress-walled mansion, they'll just bring in the military and militarized police in to protect by slaughtering off the fodder. A strong economy? Why then the hell is all the trucking companies going bankrupt? Why did the Fed raise rates? Why are they bailing out the banks with repo? Meanwhile, millions of Americans living paycheck to paycheck, no health care, homeless, etc. Completely out of touch and incorrect. Rinse and repeat day in and day out. We are in a simmering sovereign debt crisis that is about to become very obvious in 2021. The reason we don't have real inflation, even though we're at full, or historically low unemployment, is because everyone is overlooking the debt bubble. At every level, government, corporate, and consumer, we have record debt, and thus, record debt service is at all-time highs. So even though you're making as much money as ever, what you have left over as discretionary, is the same or lower, because more dollars are going towards servicing debt. Which is basically a black hole, it's money that you're obligated to pay, for a benefit that you've already received in the past. Every time you borrow, especially to consume or purchase a depreciating item, you're pulling forward future production and savings, plus costs of interest. Both the unemployment rate and inflation rate in the United States are well over 20% each. All the statistics are lies. The banks took over government long ago. It was bankers and lawyers who wrote the Constitution. Your average thief, including banks, and foreign-owned U.S. politicians, will steal more and more from you until you force them to stop. These thieves will never voluntarily stop stealing. Unless you choose to stop them, they will take everything. And in fact, not only have they taken absolutely everything, they have been borrowing in your name and stealing that too. So billions of dollars needed from Fed to repo market to avoid bank collapse. Fed debt balance sheet now $7.6 trillion. We just added another $1.9 trillion and there is going to be an infrastructure bill coming too. This goose is cooked. It's game over as in checkmate. This is it, folks. UBI, via modern monetary theory, is already in action, happening right there in front of us. When the government so grossly deficit spends and prints these massive amounts of money, that's MMT. When they print everyone a check for cash. That's the start of UBI. They'll get everyone used to the idea of stimulus checks and then it'll be easier to walk in monthly stimulus. And most people still don't realize what is happening and how bad this coming collapse is really going to be. What Americans don't realize is that unless they own their own business, that effectively, everyone is already on universal basic income. The government's trillions out of thin air is funding the entire Ponzi economy we now live in. It's their made-up trillions pouring into basically all government functions. They feed the trough of corporate pigs, which are then in turn contracting with other businesses and so on down the line. The consumer is not funding any of this. It's all borrowed money. There is virtually zero productivity right now in the US. Not one soul produces anything of value. We now call it services. People point and click on computers. That's it. There is no production at any auto factory. It's assembly of parts from overseas. Ditto for virtually every other durable good. All we have here now are people bilking and milking the system. We have traders. We have brokers. Agents. Sales. Information technology professionals. Finance. These are all overhead functions. 85% of all jobs today can be outsourced to overseas. Done over the cloud, or over the internet. The remaining 15%, which is manual labor, can all be done by robots or drones. Even cheap labor immigrants are easily replaced. Doctors' jobs are being replaced by nurses and robots. Truck drivers' jobs are being replaced by AI. There is no such thing as a services economy. You either produce goods or you don't. And if you don't, your country better be darn good at printing money. So that's the US. Hyperinflation is already here. People don't get what it is because they have never experienced it. Bitcoin is hyperinflation in spades. As are a number of stocks. Home prices, college degrees, medical costs, energy, transportation, are all in hyperinflation mode. Texas experienced prices of electric going from cents per kilowatt hour to over $9,000 per kilowatt hour. Energy companies are going bankrupt left and right, and municipals are talking about 20-year repayment plans for their costs from 1 week. Folks, that is hyperinflation, and it's not because of a one-off event. That is exactly how hyperinflation works. It hits hard and heavy and comes in spurts that people feel are one-off events. This happens and it's already too late. You can't protect yourself from it. It's now completely out of control. People will wait until they see it in foodstuffs and gasoline prices. By the time you recognize it there, then you are talking about needing wheelbarrows of cash within months. Not years. Saudis are already talking $100 a barrel oil. This when consumers have cratered car use due to remote working. Fracking is done. Kaput. Gone. All those companies have gone belly up. Our imports of oil have skyrocketed, and Biden and the mainstream media have hidden that fact. Powell cannot only not stop hyperinflation, but he is trapped and has to contribute more to it every single day. Why? Because now, if he doesn't, the entire system freezes up overnight. It just seizes. Everything would stop. No food gets to cities. The energy supply stops. Trucking stops. Power goes out. We are immediately in the caveman era, with societal unrest and mass starvation occurring so rapidly, and the smell of death in the air, happening so quickly. You will be clamoring for Fauci's double and triple masks, and there won't have to be a mandate. The stimulus packages will now have to come once a quarter, and the $7 trillion that got added to the Fed's balance since last March, will now have to go to $70 trillion in the next few years. The Fed absolutely cannot stop printing. The bond market yields are screaming higher and will continue to do so, until the system finally breaks. And then stocks all collapse. This is inevitable. It's the final, entirely predictable outcome of the QE that was started by Greenspan over 2 decades ago. There is no more raising rates by the Fed. They can't do it. They are trapped. Also, is anybody watching America's defeat in the trade talks with China? The fact of the matter is that we no longer call the shots, China does. The mask will come off more and more as China gains new ascendancy over the United States. The actual long-term ramifications of this are simply too unthinkable for most people to grasp fully. China leading the world versus the USA leading the world are two totally different ideologies. One is based on totalitarianism and coercion, and the other one is based on freedom and individual liberty. This will not be like driving on the left side of the road as opposed to the right side. And this won't be just another economic recession or even depression, but one where those who think they are positioned to make a profit may, in fact, also be destroyed. There are ghastly times ahead for the United States. And to those who out of their own ignorance sing of the joys of China, you will rudely awaken.